today's 45-minute webinar entitled An Introduction to Predictive Analytics, an Executive's Guide for Informed Decision Making. This is part one of a 5-part webinar series. Today's webinar is brought to you by Performance G2. Performance G2 is a full-service business analytics consultancy that provides analytics solutions, services, and software, including Cognos on-site and online training, financial performance management, data management, and consulting to organizations. Performance G2 is a premier IBM Cognos Business Analytics partner, IBM Cognos Business Analytics reseller, and IBM Cognos Support Provider certified. I will be your moderator today, and I would like to introduce you to today's host, Drew Pulvermacher, Director of Predictive Analytics for Performance G2. Drew has over a decade of experience in analytics, focusing on improving enterprise value through the use of operation research methodologies for enhancing productivity, efficiency, and profitability at organizations. Before we get started, I would like to inform you that we will be giving away 10 free copies of the book Flawed Averages, signed by the author Sam Savage. We will announce the winners of the books at the end of the webinar today. Also, we will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, so please feel free to submit your questions during the webinar by filling out the Q&A box that is located on your control panel on your screen, or you can also submit questions by emailing us at info@performanceg2.com. This webinar will be recorded, and a recording will be sent to all registrants as soon as it is available. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to Drew to start the Predictive Analytics webinar. Drew?
Thank you, Candace. Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Drew from Performance G2. I am extremely excited to be here this morning. I'm also pretty nervous because I've been doing this for over 15 years now in the space called Predictive Analytics, and I know that it has so much potential to add value to your company, as well as, you know what, there's a lot of concepts to cover, and today this is just an introduction. We're not going to talk about the data or the technology or the formulas for simulation, optimization. We're just going to start off building the foundation so you can start moving fast and asking the questions within inside your organization. So over the past 15 years, I fell into this space. I have a background in finance and operations. I was working with a small company, about $100 million company, and we couldn't get data. It took about 15 minutes to get anything on a customer, and I built a little BI tool in about 8 weeks. 3 months later, we were pumping cash left and right, increased profitability about 700 basis points, and over the next 10 years, just applied learning from simulation experts, got an insurance, and then ended up working with a pretty big retailer. Moved the product line from about $90 million to $400 million in less than 18 months. Part of that was due to analytics and also a really great team of people to work with. So for the past few years, been helping out organizations just leverage their data to make better decisions and work with this growing field of predictive analytics. So this series, there'll be five parts. This first one today, executive introduction. We will get into data modeling, simulation, optimization, and end the series with data-driven leadership. So the agenda today, I have to say that we're going to cover a couple of terminologies, okay? This is going to be about a semester's worth of stat classes, all summed up with 4 words. And we're going to cover descriptive analytics, probably about a minute or two, and then the meat of the conversation today, predictive analytics. Where to start, a couple questions to ask, of just diving into this world. But first, I do want to thank you for the opportunity to serve you guys today. I want you to know that I don't take your time lightly. I know that you're investing the next half hour with us, maybe an hour, and I've been in your seat before, listening to a webinar. I know that you want to get to the point. Give me the details. Let's get rolling. So I just want to tell you, thank you very much, and I appreciate your time. I do believe this session is going to be a great introduction for you. So let's move into foundation building. Terminology, predictive analytics. How do we call this? What do we say about this? Risk-based decision making. Predictive analytics is all about decision making, and we will review those concepts in detail today. If it's risk-based, then we're talking about probability. Hopefully this word does not scare anyone. It's basically the likelihood of an event happening. Uncertainty and risk are concepts within probability. Standard deviation, this is going to come out. I'm going to try not to say standard deviation at all. Think about this as risk variation around a mean, around an average. This is your uncertainty. And correlation, relationship between variables. The reason why I'm going through this terminology is that I don't know where everyone's coming from. I don't know if the last stat class you took was 20 years ago. I know there's one person on the call that's been doing this for 40 years, and this could be as easy as, hey, this is 2 plus 2 for me, but I want to start very slowly right now. So the reason for being for predictive analytics, there is a fundamental lack of understanding forward-looking decision making. What do I mean by this? The biggest impact for this is due to the average. So give me 2 averages. Average of 8, average of 8. Are these 2 numbers the same? They both equal 8 on the average. If we map it out, hey, here's the first one, here's the second one. Excuse me for a second, I have to take a drink of water. As you can see, hey, these are not the same. Some people say the common response is, well, you know, the law of large numbers says at the end of the day, it's going to equal the average anyways. To illustrate why this is such a risk in decision making, I want to ask for your advice. I'm out on a hike with my son, Dane, and we come across 2 streams. We have to cross one. The one on the left is on average 4 feet deep. The one on the right is on average 2 feet deep. Which one should we cross? Most people say you should cross the one that's on average 2 feet deep because there's less risk of drowning. And this is the flaw of averages. Because we don't know if it's 1 foot, 1 foot, 20 feet, 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot. That is the average, and that is the flaw of averages. So why is this important? When we get into meetings, and the one that comes to my mind, every week we had a 50-page document of all these different metrics, and they're all averages, and then we get into discussions of, okay, well, how come it went up 2% this week? Last week was down 5%. And what we were doing, we were comparing an average, but we were never looking at the variation, the uncertainty of number of customers that are coming in, what they're buying, and all these different factors that, you know what, the human mind really can't take into account all the different variables of our business, especially if you're viewing probably 500 in a week. So here's the true story. Working with an $80 billion corporation, this came up in a meeting. The marketing team wanted $20 more million for an advertising campaign. And this is the results of their prior one. After spending $40 million on the last campaign, customer order frequency increased to 4.5 from 4.4, incremental lift of 0.1. An ROI of, and that's where you need to stop right there. What do those numbers look like? If you get anything from this webinar today, always ask what that average looks like. What does 4.4 look like? Well, it looks like this. And I know that 62% of our customers purchase less than 4 times with us in that time period. What does 4.5 look like? It's basically the same thing. There is no incremental lift at all. Where is that $40 million going? What are you getting for it? When you're spending that type of cash on a campaign, make sure that you're getting your money's worth. And those who are winning with predictive analytics are replacing this with this. So no longer are we talking about numbers, we're talking about uncertainty. So getting descriptive analytics, we got to touch on this because descriptive feeds right into predictive. When you're thinking about analytics, what things come to mind? Most people say, you know what, I want a dashboard. I want to see KPIs, I want to see trends, year-over-year variances. I want to compare it to last week's sales, all this other stuff. I had to take a break quickly just to get a drink of water. Excuse me. The danger of this, a lot of business decisions are made by just looking at this dashboard. oh my gosh, we had a 5% variance versus last week. We have to do something. And I want to illustrate this with an example. If you ever flown an airplane, you know what happens when you fly by just looking at the dashboard and not looking out the window? There's this concept called pilot-induced oscillation. And I'm going to show you guys a clip of what this looks like. This is a pilot that's just looking at his control panel, and he's not looking out the window. Dun, dun, dun. There we go. If you ever heard of the bullwhip effect, supply chains, it's due to this, looking at a dashboard, making adjustments based on lagging indicators. There's nothing wrong with descriptive analytics because it tells you what happened with the business, but making a decision, forward-looking decisions, there's definitely great risk in ignoring your uncertainty and your risk. So let's move into predictive analytics here. We're going to get dirty. Hopefully by now the word averages should make you cringe. And we're going to talk about where to start with this. How do I get rolling? So I'm dealing with averages. We talk about this stuff every week. What type of questions should I ask before I start diving into the data, before I make a $500,000 investment in new technology? Can it just do it for me automatically? And then we're going to talk about a pretty simple example about informed action. And then we're going to end. Yeah, so we're going to get into, before Q&A, we're going to talk about reinventing decision making. And this is going to have a couple business examples of just ways to think about a business problem. And these come from real life cases. I'm not going to give the full details behind them, but just kind of different ways of looking at how to solve a problem by using predictive analytics. Where do I start? First, ask yourself, what is my objective? What do I want to get to? There's a lot of companies say, you know, we have all this data. We're sitting on tons and tons and tons of information, and I just want to get my hands dirty. I want to dive in there and just find something, find that golden nugget. Well, it's really easy to get lost, like go down a different rabbit hole, right? Do I want to increase profitability? Yes. Well, what makes up profitability? You know, you want to look at just SG&A. You want to look at revenue. You look at the cost side. You know, you talk about all these different variables. Which gets into the next one. What are my variables? What can I control? What can I manage? What can I influence? We'll talk about these three as well. And then what are my constraints? Basically, the hand you're dealt with. This is probably one of the most important slides on predictive analytics. It doesn't talk about formulas. It just talks about how to set up the question. What objective do I need to accomplish? And what makes that up? So, simple illustration. Blackjack. Objective, get as close to 21 without going over. Variables, we're going to stick with 2 here. Either hit or stay. Okay? You control that decision. Constraints, the hand you're dealt. All right? So do you know what the average winning hand is in blackjack? It's 18.5. Do you know what the probability of winning with an average winning hand? 0. You'll never be dealt 18.5. The reason I want to bring this up is because we have, you have quotas, you have budgets you have to hit. Working with a retailer, this 18.5 number, this is so common right now. Hey, we're starting out the day, we have to sell 18.5 shirts, whatever. Name some type of consumer product. At the end of the day, you know what? Joe comes in and says, hey, you know what? I only sold 17. I only sold 16. Why didn't you sell that 18.5 that we had to hit? It's going to come back at us. Well, you don't know what came through that door. What if only 17 people came through your door that day and you sold them all 17? That's a pretty good day compared to, hey, selling 19 and 200 people came in, right? So in relating this back to blackjack, let's say that you had a hand of 13. You know that average winning hand is 18.5. What are you going to do? It depends on what the dealer has. The dealer has 6. You know immediately that you stay. How do you know this? Basic strategy. So basic strategy, turning back to predictive analytics, is built on using stat modeling and simulation. So this is going to tell you the optimal decision based on your hand versus the dealer. All right? So this is using all your historical information and all the possible combinations of how to play a hand. And I say, okay, what about card counting? Card counting is going to improve my hand as well. Card counting is kind of like optimization. So if a card is already dealt out, all these decision variables that are on the screen will change with each new card. Optimization will be section 4 of the series. I won't get into it too much here today, but it is another powerful tool that you can use inside your company. And that's basically using all the information that impacts your objective. And it updates, hopefully it updates automatically for you. Reinventing decision making. Let's move from Blackjack and that 18.5 into some real cases here. This is where we usually start out, building a blueprint for success here. You have your objective. We're going to identify what can you control within your business. What can you influence? What can you manage? What are your constraints? An important topic here, your point to call out, is removing bottlenecks. Before you start with predictive analytics, and I don't want to say before you start, I mean, you can do it, but if you really want to go fast with it, make sure that this data discovery path is efficient as possible. And what I mean by this is that you don't have information scattered throughout the organization. Because if this process, if I want to solve this objective, and it takes me 3 days to get information, right there is an issue with inside the company. Because when you start going down this road of predictive analytics, you're going to have more questions pop up that you're going to have answers for. And if it takes 3 days to get information back, that's going to slow down that decision-making process. You want to make sure that getting that information is very, very quick. Perhaps the most significant benefit is this will maximize decision throughput and transparency. When you're moving fast, I've seen this before, going from a company that was reporting on a monthly basis to transforming it to a daily basis, and people were just picking up quickly and making their own, I don't say their own decisions, but they were making some pretty bold steps of transforming their business. All right, example number 1, purchase decision. Objective, this is simple, guys. Not going to get into formulas here. Objective, match supply with demand to maximize profit. Variables, hey, we can control how much we order. What we can't control is demand. We can influence, yes, absolutely. Constraints, open to buy. And this would be basically the budget you have to buy a product, right? So our selling price, call it $15.75, product cost at $10.50. Okay, fantastic. Demand, you know what? We have average demand of 400, standard deviation 50. Most people say, okay, let's order 400 to match our average demand. From what we just discussed, you know what? This number right here is a little misleading. What does that look like? This is part of what a PA model would look like in this case. So price, you know what, that $15.75, yeah, that could be the average. There could also be something behind there as well. And customers, I may not know what the customer profile looks like, what the customer demand pattern looks like, but no, you know what, at least we know there's maybe 100 people that come in here at minimum. Yeah, average, most likely 400, and maximum 600. So this is where I get into the point of, you know what, you're not dealing with a number anymore, you're dealing with a shape. You can replace numbers with shapes now and have kind of a profit profile that's moving for you. So it's kind of like Groundhog's Day. I'm using averages, using a point estimate, still have risk, but let me run this about 10,000 times and see what that profile looks like. And now my manager or whoever, the frontline person, can make that decision based on their risk profile or risk tolerance. Employee retention. This one's coming up more and more these days. It's HR analytics. Common situation, employee turnover is high, 20% per quarter. Solution, well, we're going to increase pay, time off, other benefits. And how we, you know what, here's 20%. Let's start this strategy. Hey, turnover went down to 10% next quarter, but it came up at 40%. You just kind of delayed that decision to quit. Q4, it's back to that 20. PA, hey, the objective, retain quality employees. Variables, yeah, we can control pay, we can manage pay and benefits, working relationships, or working conditions, I'm sorry, and the influence through leadership and relationships. Constraints, that employee profile. In this type of example, PA is kind of working backwards. We're working with the constraint. You're not really going to change your employees' strengths and who they are, their personal profiles, right? Now, some solutions like, okay, we have HR data. I'm going to plop it into a black box solution, and it's going to come up and say, you know what? Number one reason people leave is because of this department, because of this manager, because of the job role, because they didn't get increase pay after year one. All right, that's still kind of descriptive. It's telling you what happened. But how do you influence on a daily basis? You go back and say, okay, how would the DISC profile? I don't know if, hopefully everyone's kind of heard of this before. These either like strength-based management profiles, all this other stuff. You know, D's are kind of the achievers. They want more responsibility, they want leadership. I, more involvement. Your S's want feedback and praise. C's, kind of detailed objectives. Okay, you know, that's all high level. But do you have the right people in place for the jobs? They're matching you. Maybe you have a great manager that has a certain style, but there's different personality profiles that don't really work inside that team. Would you have a lot of D's going in being hey, cashiers or something? I don't want to make light of cashier at all, but they might just kind of get bored in that responsibility. All this has to be influenced, taken into account when you're doing a PA model, because not all your employees are equal. They all have different strengths that they bring to the table. This third example here, commodity pricing. Now you can think about this, stocks, bonds, energy, in this case, pork bellies. The objective here, I want to minimize my monthly forecast here. Okay, what are my variables? Well, the commodity prices themselves. You can have an entire portfolio of different commodities that you can buy. Weather's coming into play more these days as well. You can put weather in here. And it constraints your budget or whatever your corporate goals are for the year. Like you have a certain target that you have to hit. So here's, I'm not going to show the details behind how you got here. The forecast and original observations. So the blue line is the actual results. The red one is the actual forecast for 2013. And when we ran this, you know what? We actually had a 12-month forecast error of 5%. Now there's some pretty big variances at the beginning of the year, and we kind of knew that going into this. So using a leading indicator, this is X. This gets into the concept of correlation. So when we know that, hey, if that blue line is starting to get above 10%, 15%, there's something going on. This gets into the concept of systematic risk, unsystematic risk, and that's when you can start to manage that portfolio. So if it's starting to get out of whack, hey, let's bring in something else to reduce our risk of portfolio. And this brings in the concept of, do I hit or do I stay? What else do I bring in here to improve my hand? Okay. Example 4, healthcare optimization. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's the same as manufacturing, but you have the staff to basically match the rivals that are coming into the hospital. Same thing with like a order flow, the bottlenecks that happen in manufacturing. The same kind of concept happens with healthcare, although it's really complex here. Objective, yeah, we want high quality care, but we want to increase patient throughput. Okay, how do you balance those two objectives? Variables, I'm keeping it simple here: staff levels, constraints, rooms. I can't increase rooms on the fly, but what I can do is I can take these patient arrivals, it's a shape, our service rates, it's also a shape, and I can map out every different step within a hospital in a simulation model. It's kind of like a wind tunnel for airplanes, and I can watch how everything interacts before I physically move beds to different wings of a hospital, before I add a new room, whatever. I can see how it plays out on a computer. Yeah, it's not going to be 100% perfect, but it's going to give you a better insight on, hey, how do I improve service within healthcare, within manufacturing, even with airport security. Okay, how do I match my service rates to the arrival rates of my patients, my customers, product orders? Okay. So predictive analytics, you're also going to hear decision sciences come up every now and then, or prescriptive analytics. But I got to tell you, the people who are winning right now, they're the ones that are replacing that number 4.5 with the shape. They're winning fast. I've seen companies improve. Again, that 700 basis point example, that was 3 months. It's I don't want to say it's super easy. It's simple, yes. The hard part is the hearts and minds campaign that you have to go through, because this is brand new. In terms of, it is going to replace a lot of jobs in the future. There's those who are winning, those who are learning how to win. They're looking for coaches. Hey, how do we just start? Where do we start? And I say start by asking those questions. What does that 4.5 look like? How does it relate to different variables in their business? If you have questions on any of this stuff, please feel free to reach out to me, the Performance G2. Even if you just need a resource, you need a book. That book, Flaw of Averages, it's a very easy read. You probably read it in a weekend, but it's going to give you just the fundamentals of starting out and encouraging development and exploration of the space. I appreciate your time this morning, and hopefully this is a good introduction to this concept. I know that I was super high 30,000 foot view on this stuff. We're going to get into details over the next few weeks, and I hope to see you in the future. Candace has been collecting your questions over the past 30 minutes, and I'd be happy to answer anything I can. So thank you.
Thanks, Drew. Thank you so much for the informative presentation. At this point, we do have some questions for you. So I'm going to try and get through all the questions that we have this morning. If for some reason your question doesn't get answered, or maybe you have questions after the webinar, please feel free to email us, info@performanceg2.com, or you can email Drew directly, drew@performanceg2.com. The first question for you, Drew, is you mentioned averages are misleading and decision makers should instead use distributions. How do you know the distributions are not misleading?
Yeah, so that's kind of goes into like an MPV model, right? You look at the MPVs, you have all these different variables that are plugged in here. People can basically adjust the output of MPV by changing the number. Same thing with distributions. You have to be careful of, hey, who's auditing this information? This concept of a chief probability officer comes up every now and then, that, you know what, hey, we're starting to go, we're moving faster in PA. We want to use these distributions. Who's going to sign off on, yes, this is the correct shape to use? Usually I'd recommend that lands in the Office of Finance, because there has to be an audit process. Because you can put together an MPV model and tweak these shapes for your own benefit, and that's something that you need to be aware of, and that gets into the leadership of data-driven organizations.
Okay, great. Thank you, Drew. The next question for you is, in your opinion, what are the top 3 things we should consider when starting a predictive analytics journey?
Oh, sorry. The first one is kind of basically the culture. Is the culture open for risk thinking? Um, this gets into that 4.5 here on the screen versus that shape. You know what? I see something. I want to try it. Do I have the freedom to go after these small wins to see if they win? And this also goes back to that blackjack example. Just because you have a basic strategy card doesn't mean that every hand that you play you're going to win, but you're going to win more in the long term, and you're going to be in the game longer for when the big opportunities come. Um, and second, I just get some. If you have a couple employees, they're just really curious about this. Um, let them free. Let them explore this. Get their hands dirty. And the third one is it gets back to data and technology here. Can you dive in and get and answer a question quickly? Um, you're not requesting someone else to get that information for you. The turnaround time isn't 3 days. It's not 3 hours. It's within seconds. So I'd say that's the data throughput side.
Okay, great. Thanks, Drew. The next question is, how long does it take to successfully launch a predictive analytics project?
That depends on the organization and the objective. Like I said a few minutes ago, be as quick as 8 weeks or as long as 2 years. 8 weeks is in the case of, you know what, people are on board with this and they're willing to try something new. And if it wins, let's keep on rolling and let's keep on improving. 2 years, that's that Hearts and Mind campaign. Yeah, the model, you can have a model up and running in 2 weeks, right? But the influence side, and that comes back to the leadership. You're going to influence a lot of people, and there's going to be folks within the side of the organization that might be scared of this because this has a potential of even replacing jobs. More importantly, I don't say it more importantly, but it changes the way that people think about decision making.
Great, okay. So we are going to do one more question for Drew, and then I'm going to announce the 10 winners of the book. So Drew, the last question is, what hazards should I be looking for while testing predictive analytics in my organization?
The main hazards, excuse me, relates back to that shape there. If you're dealing with this, make sure that, hey, those shapes have been audited. You can go back and audit those. If you ever see anything come across your desk and everything's normal, red flags should be jumping up immediately. There's hardly anything in business where distribution is normal. That's probably the one tip there. Another one, so we're taught this in B school, the sensitivity analysis, scenario analysis tools. Just say we have 2 variables, price, demand, and we have sensitivity around those, going from negative 10% up 10%. This is very common. The one thing that's missing from a table like that is the actual risk. So if you're looking at the negative 10 square versus the positive 10% square, when you just look at that, it looks like those have equal weights. It's like rolling a dice. They have the same probability of landing. Well, in reality, that table should be risk adjusted. There's a missing axis, that z-axis, of where risk lies, and that's hidden. So those are probably the two main hazards that I've seen over the last few years.
Great, thanks, Drew. If you could go on to the last slide for us.
Oh, yes.
If your questions did not get answered today, or if you have any other questions again, feel free to connect info@performanceg2.com. You can call us at the number you see on your screen. Also, feel free to visit our website. We have a great blog where we do analytics articles, and you can also follow us on any of our social media channels, and we have some great videos on YouTube. And I know the recording of this will be on our YouTube channel as well, but we will make sure we give everybody that's on this call a link to the recording as well. So before we conclude the webinar, I have 10 winners to announce for the free book. So it has been signed by the author of the book, and the book is called Law of Averages. The winners are James Fry, Shashil Dinesh, Dennis Dunn, Greg Lepak, Karen Binder, Aaron Taylor, Julie Sutherland, Terry Donovan, Bob Shoemaker, and Cedrica King. If I called your name, I will definitely reach out to you via email and get those books to you guys. So, on that note, I would like to thank Drew for his presentation today. For more information about any other upcoming events, especially the second series to this webinar, feel free to visit our website, performanceg2.com/events. We look forward to having you attend all of our future events, especially the future series of this webinar. Drew, is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, not at this time, but thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.